Welcome back to another episode of Flutter Original. Today, we're going to talk about Dart code metric. Let's welcome Dmitry.
Thanks for having me, and let's deep dive into what DCM can actually do.
I have one question for you. Tell us those features, like major features of Dart code metrics, DCM.
Lints are definitely one of the core features. It's most used feature and most useful feature in general. Commands are the way to analyze your project. It includes the analyze command for calculating lints, lint violations, calculate metrics, and also commands like check unused code, check unused files, check unused localization.
This was a huge list of features. So that was very nice. For those who are watching right now, we actually have another video with Dmitry talking about his journey of becoming an entrepreneur. Welcome back to another episode of Flutter Original. Today, we're going to talk about Dart code metric or Dart code metrics package, which probably some of you have seen in the past, but I have the author of this package and the new package, the paid plan, which is DCM, and you may have heard about it. Let's welcome Dmitry. How are you, Dmitry?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me, and let's deep dive into what DCM can actually do.
Thank you for accepting my invitation to come to this show and talk about Dart code metrics. First thing first, let me just quickly go through the package. Here is the pop.dev page. This was your original package that then it was kind of discontinued a couple of months ago, and still people can use it though, right? So, but it's discontinued, it's not supported. But then you move to DCM, a new paid version of this as a service. Let's open it up and see. Let's go to the website. This is the new website. This is the new product that you are building, right? Which is somehow a progressive, also an enhancement, and maybe a lot more feature of on top of the Dart code metrics, the initial package that you've been maintaining for some time. So for those who are watching right now, we actually have another video with Dmitry talking about his journey of becoming an entrepreneur and also moving from being a developer to an entrepreneur, and all the story behind that, which is, I recommend you take a look. I'm gonna put the link here in the description below. Please check it out. But then, Dimitri, right now, this is the new package where I'm on the website right now. I'm just moving around and I see, I used to actually have an experiment with Dart code metrics, the open source package, maybe 2 years ago. And I see a lot of new features and enhancement here. By the way, the website looks fantastic. Website is looking very good. Good job with that. So tell us right now, in short, first, who you are. I think at the moment I told you you are the author of package, but just generally introduce yourself. And also after that, tell us about Dart code metrics. What is this product right now? Why this is paid?
Sure. I think for those who interact with me within the Flutter community, I'm probably most known to them as actually the author of the package and now the person behind the product. But before that, prior to switching to full-time entrepreneurship and building my own thing, I mostly did front-end development, and I think my previous job was leading a front-end team. And before that, my first time with Dart was at Trike, where I joined the team as a front-end developer. Like still, I think has like 2 million lines of code in Dart Angular, something like that. And that was my first time learning Dart, first time interacting with the Dart Angular itself. And I think after that, I actually really like the language, even though I think that for Verb, particularly Dart Angular is not the best solution at this point. And from what I've seen through the work at Trike, I would personally, and maybe because I know JavaScript and TypeScript really well, that I would go with a web first native framework. I don't really think it really matters which one, but again, nonetheless, I think Dart and Flutter is a great ecosystem, and I'm actually really happy to being able to contribute to it through DCM, and I'm actually really happy to contribute to it through DCM. Okay, about the product itself. So DCM, again, was originally created at Trike, actually, not by me. I am like one of the first people who joined the project. Many of them left after some time. I think they were not really interested in building static analysis things. And actually at Trike, we built 3 tools. We had like our custom tooling for ESLint. We had custom linter for HTML because Dart Angular has HTML templates and literally zero linting for HTML in Dart ecosystem at the time. And we built our own tools. I also contributed to that. And then we built the Dart Code Metrics package initially at Rike with only metrics. Then we added few rules. And then we kind of understood how to do the rules because at the beginning there were, I think, only 3 plugins available, Dart Analyzer plugins available at all. It was like build value package and plugin for it. It was Dart Angular plugin for those who was that old. there was a plugin for Dart Angular. And I think the third one was, I think there was something else, but DCM was like third or fourth in that. There were like literally zero knowledge how to build plugins outside. As I understand, actually with time, Google had plans to remove the plugins API completely, like completely. And Dart Code Metrics, the package, was the only reason, or the main reason, as they said, that they decided not to deprecate the API because they saw the people were using the package. So to some coincidence even that to DCM was the reason they kept the API. Now the DCM Dart Code Metrics, the package is not is discontinued. The API is still there for other plugin authors, for example, for custom lint, right? That is also based on the ironically kind of DCM stopped the API from being removed and then was discontinued the package again, and it's still available for other plugin authors to kind of hop in. I'm not sure whether the Google team, the analyzer team, is really happy that the API stayed because I think it's for them it's like additional thing to support, and the more people use it, the more they leave in feedback that it's actually unstable, has memory leaks, bugs, etc. So I am not sure that they're happy that it's there, but that's the history of it. Let's say that.
This is then your fault that we still have that
yeah,
right?
To some degree, yes. There, and actually, I'm the person who migrated. At least, I'm not the one person who migrated the plugins API to null safety, but I created the pull request and did like 80-90% of the job, and then passed it to the Google to the analyzer team, and they finished the migration to null safety of the API, and then they published null safety. So I also and through the years, I actually tried to also submit different bugs that we in the community of the plugin and the package found during the time. And so yeah, we tried to make the plugins better, but I still think that it's not enough to provide the best experience. To some degree, it's due Dart's own limitation because Dart has no proper memory, multi-threading and sharing memory between threads. And that's a problem for packages. That's a problem how Analyzer implements plugins API because it basically spins another fully featured analysis server just to do the job for the plugin. And it's really memory and CPU consuming. And unfortunately, that's a huge limitation.
Yeah.
There's no way to optimize it. Some history, yeah.
That's interesting to hear. So I didn't know it's your fault, though then I know who to blame. No, I'm just joking, but nice.
Yeah,
so, well, I have one question for you. In my recent published book, Flutter Engineering, I dedicated one chapter to linting and rules. I believe this is a very important guide. Rules, these type of things for building a good software is actually important, especially we have team or big companies. Like the more developers are working on a project, the more you realize you need actually something solid that is like picking the things, and everyone is doing or developing in a way that they should. So I totally understand why we need to use this Dart Code Metric. I believe the project started with the same feeling back then when you mentioned you needed something to just, not to reinvent the wheel every time you have a project. Like this is happening right now. Every time I have a project, if you already have done, it's good. Maybe you copy and paste some rules, but not that team. Maybe a new team may not require some of the rules that you are copy and pasting. They may need other things. They may need custom rules and, lintings, not necessarily the one that you have. And linting and, is one thing, and then fixing those problems is another thing, right? Having something that lets you to quickly fix, move on, and even go further, detect, things that is not used or have some metrics of what's going on here, like how many folders depths we have in the project. I've I've been in project that I had just a tree in my code editor. I was just opening and opening and opening and opening folders until I get to a file. How many nested folder do you want to create in a project? Like, these are great things that you are putting into this package, definitely, and definitely needed in many projects. So tell us, like, those things, those features, like major features of Dart code metrics, DCM, like what are those major features and how do you categorize those and why?
Okay, so I think that lints are definitely one of the core features. It's the most used feature and most useful feature in general, as it helps basically, because I think I will even step back that I will say that in the community, in the Dart Flutter community, you can actually find a lot of packages that look like custom linting. But in reality, those packages are just trying to regroup for their own code style existing rules from the analyzer. So I think that's the important idea behind DCM is that rules provided by DCM are unique. They are not available in the analyzer. They are additional rules, and these rules are configurable. So one thing is the lint rules, again, customizable, unique. Second feature is metrics that basically help you collect different numbers from about your project. For example, as you mentioned, I don't think they actually have the depths as a metric list of folders, but let's say we have cyclomatic complexity, is basically how complex piece of code is. We have the number of imports, the depths of widget tree. For example, you have a widget and everything that can be statically analyzed in the widget, you see how many widgets do I have, like 10, nesting of 10 widgets, let's say, or like, and then we also have another metric, for example, that shows you how many unique widgets the widget uses. From Flutter, in general, just like, for example, your widget uses 20 widgets in the build method, or like 50 digits, for example. It also shows you, and those numbers, you can see places in your code base that require attention. Because, for example, you have like millions of lines of code, let's say like even like 500,000. It's really hard for you to, especially, and they have a team that works on your code base, like contributes daily, they change things. It's really hard for you to spot the places that actually need attention, because you won't be going through all the files, to look into what's really bad. And numbers, metrics as numbers, help you at least focus on things that look strange. For example, you have a file with, I don't know, 100 imports, 100 imports, right? That's a very suspicious place. You usually don't have that, should not have that. And you look into that and understand why, or it's happened, whether it's wrong or correct. And that works for any metric, for example. Next core feature is the commands. I think right now it's the number of commands is around 10, maybe. I don't actually remember the exact number. So commands are the way to analyze your project. It includes the analyze command for calculating lints, lint violations, calculate metrics for calculating metrics, and also commands like check unused code, check unused files, check unused localization, parameters analysis that helps you find unused parameters, unused optional parameters that actually always used and can be marked not optional, parameters that actually receive the same value, constant value, for example, a string all the time, and can be just removed and replaced by the value direct. It helps you, and of course, unnecessary nullable parameters that nullable, but actually never receive the null value. It helps you simplify your code, remove additional checks just to have simpler flow. For example, if you actually never pass null value but have a null check, it's usually additional like branch of code to handle this null value, and it might not be necessary at all. This is also commands for projects, building project structure, how files and folders import each other. For example, previewing the list of widgets you have in your project with some quality metrics and how these widgets use each other. Also, if you have like similar subtrees, for example, you have two buttons that completely different buttons, but they share the same subtree inside. This command will show you that they share the subtree and that you can actually extract it, kind of rewrite it. It's usually for you to decide whether this similarity is unnecessary or like acceptable, right? It's your decision. And then there are like a command to find duplicate code. It's in early stage, it only shows full declarations. It has some optimizations, but it's not per statement duplication. I think it will be implemented a bit later. But for now, it's full declarations duplication with some optimizations to it. So, and that's what commands really are. And then we also basically support GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket formats to help you integrate the tool into your CI environment better and see like some annotations or information, even if PR fails in a better way, let's say, not just in a console where everything is hard to find, but GitHub, I think GitLab, they all have very nice API, but this API requires additional effort. and that is also included into the tool. And I think two more things. They're not as for core. Let me just think. Maybe I'm missing something of a core feature. Lints, commands, integrations, of course, DCM fix and the quick fixes in general. So not all rules are fixable. That's the reality of things. Sometimes you need to make a decision how the problem should be addressed. But for those that are, first of all, DCM comes with quick fixes in your IDE, and then special command DCM fix that you actually can call from your IDE on save, on a shortcut, etc. And it fixes fixable issues in your code just for you. For example, we have a rule that helps you sort the order of class members, right? Constructors first, then fields, and this rule is auto-fixable. You can just run DCM fix against your whole code base and that you won't without manually updating each class. This is like huge boost in applying the rules, etc. We also have, and I think for core features, that's it. And not so core features, let's say that the one actually that I think even both of them I think will be even valuable for the analyzer itself, for the Dart analyzer. The first one is baseline. It helps you regularly when you have a rule violation, you need to either address it or ignore it for it, right? So ignore either for the exact line or for the whole file. DCM comes with a different approach. You can add this violation to the baseline. It doesn't affect your code, and it's a single file per analysis context where all your violations per file are stored. And until you change the code that is included into the violation, you won't see the violation in your IDE. It helps you integrate the tool like very fast because you don't need to address all the issues or like go through the files to add ignores. You just can add all of them to a, let's say, single ignore file that you can then change and remove lines from it and see the issues appear in your IDE if you want to address like a particular set of issues. So it helps you with integration. Really, it speeds up integration really fast. Second thing that I guess the analyzer would also benefit from is the preview thing. You can select a list of rules and just run them against the code base and see how many violations you have for each rule. And it has different formats. For example, you can format it as for an analysis options file. You can copy the output and you'll see the list of rules and how many violations you have. And you can just, for example, comment or uncomment when you want to address some rule, etc. So it gives you a preview and also shows like which rules are auto-fixable from which package. You can apply different packages. The DCM support, you can apply rules from different packages, etc. And I think two very small features is that assists. We have only 2 assists, and I'm actually not sure whether this set of features will evolve with time or not. It was an experiment, and not sure if it. And the last one is the formatter, also an experiment, and it's here because team is very opinionated about not adding the configurable line length and indent, and in DCM it's available. You can set global project configuration for indent and for line length, and both DCM format and the IDE format on save from DCM use this configuration to format your code. Other than that, the implementation is the same as the Dart format. It's just some small changes to the API.
This was a huge list of features.
Yes. That was a huge list.
That was very nice. I guess, Dmitry, the best is you just open up your editor and show us, and like maybe let's do some live coding and pair programming together. And I ask more question over there because, you're talking about a lot of features, which I think it makes sense that we demonstrate it somehow.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with how it works. Okay, let's see how it works in your IDE. So the main, I think, difference between Dart Code Metrics as a package and DCM is that DCM comes as a standalone executable. You can't install it from pub, and to install it, you'll need to use a package manager for your particular operation system. For example, for Mac OS, it's Brill. For Windows, it's called Choco. And for Linux, I think it's apt-get, something like that. So I think the core reason, and you will also need to install additional extension, DCM extension, here it is, to see the issues in your IDE. And
to just again, to give a little bit of context right now for those who just started watching this, if you install this plugin and the package, it would not work immediately, right? You need to have a license, right? You need to buy it.
Yes. The project itself and the focus for that's important to understand that from what I've talked to people and what I've seen, that the group that benefits most from tools like DCM is teams. So the tool is built to, I'll start again. And it's important to say that DCM, the main focus group for DCM is teams, developer teams that use Flutter, because teams are the group that benefits most from tools like Static, that provide static analysis, linters, DCM, etc. So yeah, DCM is a paid product, you need to have a license to get started. But if you, for example, want to just try the tool, we have a 14 days trial period. But again, if you are not a team and just an individual, you will need to buy the individual license. The trial is also for teams. So yeah, you need to install the executable, you need to install the extension. And the next thing you basically need to do is the way to start, the quick start, is to add the recommended preset. That's the 3 lines that you need to add to your analysis options. And then you'll start seeing different issues in your problems. The experience is close to what you have with Dart Analyzer, but the rules, of course, are different, and you'll see different warnings. I think at this point we have around 300 rules in DCM, additional rules, and I think 95% of them are unique. So you will find some intersections. For example, they prefer adding prefer trading comma, but it's also important to say that this rule was introduced into DCM like 9 months prior than it was added to Dart Analyzer. So we actually have it before the Dart Analyzer. And so you will also see rules like that. And this rule actually was even added to the open source package. And I think that's to some degree motivated. It's my opinion. I might be wrong, but that's what motivated the first group of users to actually install Dart Code Metrics at this time, because they actually really wanted this rule for trading commas. And then it also motivated for the Dart linter analyzer team to add this rule because it was that useful. And they actually have seen the example that it can be done, it works, etc.
This is coming from the recommended preset, right? You said.
Yes, we can filter the rules again, and you'll see that all the rules that start with DCM, they all come from the recommended preset. And it's also, you can also see that one difference, that DCM rules, like a kebab naming, it's also done intentionally, because the analyzer rules have the snake naming, and DCM rules have different one, because it was done intentionally to people, and for me and for maintainers of the package before, to be able to quickly identify where the rule comes from. So it helps. It's like a small detail that instantly helps you see from where the rule comes from.
And then
so it's also,
I guess you mentioned also in the previous conversation about features, you mentioned there is a fix. So now I see that the links are appearing in the editor. So I guess now you also have a fix assistant here, right? So I can quickly fix this issue.
So yeah, you can fix again, as I mentioned before, some rules can be fixed, and the trailing comma rule is one of these rules. You can fix the rule by invoking the quick fix directly. You can also, for example, if your project has a fix on save configuration, for example, that's how it works for Dart, and that's how it works for DCM separately, also for performance optimizations. And if I just press, so I'll remove the fix that we applied before, and now I will press Command S, and you'll see that comma is automatically applied on save, and that the document is also formatted after that. So, for example,
I see even other ones also fixed, because you added the fix all in this. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yes, it fixes all different issues. And you can do the same for DCM if you call the fix all auto-fixable problems, and you'll also see them fixed, all the problems, all fixable problems fixed. For example, this one, this is the avoid shadowing, which says that we already have a variable that is named context somewhere. Here it is. It says that there is another variable named context, and it asks you basically to rename it. And this rule, for example, is not auto-fixable because the rule doesn't know whether it's intentional or you want to rename it, and if you want to rename it to what name it should have. So yeah, this one is not fixed. And let me use a fix save without formatting, so the rules are still present. That's about how to quick start with the tool basically. And if we go into, so
I guess Dmitry, I guess many of us as Flutter developers, Dart developers, or who have been in Dart and Flutter projects are pretty familiar with linting, and we're pretty also familiar with quick fixes and other things. Please go ahead and show us some of the features DCM that is not actually in the regular Dart Analyzer or Dart linting or Flutter lint package. So for example, I've seen you're talking about unused code, file detection, or you're talking about code metrics and things like that. So maybe some of the rules. So if there is any way that we can define rules, maybe these kind of things that is not like very often provided by the common packages.
I mean, the rules that DCM has also not provided by common packages, at least as far as I know. But before that, let me show you another feature of the rules. I think it let's go with no magic number. I want to cover the configurability part because that's very different from what the analyzer has and what, as far as I know, other tools, linting tools have. That DCM rules are actually very configurable, and you can see that when a rule has a gear icon, you can add additional entries into the configuration, for example, to configure the rule for your own needs. So, for example, for Dart, we have false or true, right? And then you can set info or warning. But for DCM, it works a little bit different. For example, you can also set the severity, but it's a separate entry. For example, if you set that no magic number is error, you'll see that any instance of no magic, if you have one. Yes, we have. So, for example, this says that this number...
What is no magic number, by the way, just to give us a little bit of context?
Yeah, this rule asks you to move all numbers to constants, have named constants in your project so that you don't have some numbers appearing from nowhere. It also has some exceptions. For example, it doesn't trigger for datetime because datetime is already explicit enough to, you don't need to move months, years to separate things, and some other exceptions. But so here you see that no magic number is highlighted and it's actually highlighted as error. And for example, if we want to say, okay, you know what, that actually don't remember whether it's, I think it's an array. So let's say that 250 is actually a number that you want to keep. And then if we open the code, again, we see no issue here. So the rule accepted that 250 is an exception, and then it's not highlighting it. And it works for a lot of rules. All the rules that are configurable are marked both in documentation and in the configuration. When you add them, you see the gears and you understand that they have additional config that can help you. It's also, all the rules have some shared config. For example, I think it's exclude. I'm trying to remember the configuration. For example, let me try. If we enable that, just to see that it works. Yes. So for each rule, you can also set the list of excluded files or group of files, folders that the rule should not trigger. This particular rule that we have will not trigger for those files. And as you can see, I disabled the allowed, and we still don't have the highlighted issue for 250 because this file is now excluded for this only rule, and all other rules work for it.
There is actually a linting issue. I'm wondering what is that issue? There was another linting issue on the file. If you go to the file,
those rules come from the recommended preset that we still have enabled, and one of them says that actually another companion for the trailing comma that the Dart analyzer doesn't have, that you have the unnecessary trailing comma. It says that when you have a comma that can be removed and then it will be placed on the same line, right here. When you have a case when you removing the comma reduces the number of lines and makes it better,
more readable.
You can apply a quick fix again and enable the rule in general, and it will show you those cases. For example, it usually happens for only one or two arguments or parameters, right? And it makes code a little bit more readable. And the preferred trailing comma from DCM and avoid unnecessary trailing comma, they work together. So you can have both of them. And for sometimes they will say that, hey, please add a comma here, or hey, please remove a comma there. And they work together. Another rule says that we are passing an async function to a handler that expected a sync function. So for example, here on data expects a sync function, but we are passing an async function. And this can lead to mistakes when, for example, you expect the async function to be awaited for some reason that happens. And it's actually not being awaited. And you can schedule, for example, several such functions or have a race condition because of that. And that rule basically suggests you to first of all be aware of this case that this thing is actually doesn't expect the sync function, and then to either make it sync or ignore the rule or do whatever you want to do. So that's, I think, in the core about the linting. As you said, I think I agree that most people are familiar with how linting works, but I think the core difference again with DCM is that the rules are unique and that duration for some rules are configurable and you can set.
I think my takeaway was not only unique but also very extendable. You could simply go ahead and just add more settings and features, and it's super nice. As you said, we have other linked packages, but then at least the original, the main, the one that it comes with Flutter itself is not that extensive, so you can't really extend it as much as you want. But this is interesting. That's nice. Let's move on to the metrics and maybe other features that is very unique to this package.
Let's start with the unused code, I think, and we will go directly into the unused code in IDE. So for example, if we enable, let's say, the unused code, we'll need to, I think it will restart.
So as of now, by the way, I see you are using VS Code. So
Yes.
This package, DCM, is supporting all major IDEs, right? IntelliJ, Android Studio, whatever.
As far as I know, it supports, as far as I looked into and, to intentionally support, it supports, of course, VS Code, it supports IntelliJ and Android Studio, and I actually think it supports all IntelliJ, all JetBrains IDEs, because they all, I think, share the same core. So that's covered. DCM is also supported by, we have one user, I think, who uses Vim, and we tested it. DCM also works for Vim, and I think all the IDEs that use LSP protocol, LSP protocol is already protocol, but yeah, that use LSP under the hood, supporting them should be relatively easy, but I think if they need their own plugins, they're not supported. The one that comes to mind is, I think, Helix or maybe Z, the new ones, the new very fast IDEs. I think they're not supported, but we also have no requests from the community, from the users, and I think once we get more of those, we'll just add the support for those IDEs, and it should be not. But the most popular IDEs for Flutter developers, which are VS Code and IntelliJ Android Studio, they are supported.
Sounds good.
So yeah,
let's move on.
So yeah, as you see here, I have enabled the unused code feature of DCM. This is the feature of the extension, of DCM extension, and it shows you the unused code the public unused code in your IDE in real time. So for example, here we have a field that is not used by, if you try to find, for example, references to this field, you will find only two. You'll find the declaration and that the field is being passed, assigned this from the constructor. So it basically says that this field is unused, but with all available tooling for Flutter, finding such declarations is not really possible. And DCM has this integration both in IDE and if I actually have this already open, but let's say I'll do that again. If I call DCM unused code, you see just an alias. If it's also included into DCM to type less, you can just say DCM UC lib, and you'll see all the unused declarations, and we need to find bold model sheet animation style. Okay, here it is. So it actually shows two declarations, two fields, this one and that one. And you can also see that the CLI also shows both of them. This is the unused code feature. It also has different flags. So for example, if we go to help, we'll just explain in short what there are configurations for this command. For example, one of the newest features of DCM is that it also, by default, the unused code, there are such cases where finding the unused code is really hard. For example, if you have a class hierarchy and you have a base class that has two childs and one of them uses the method from the base class, but the another one doesn't. And the last one that doesn't have the declaration being used, or the written declaration being used, we cannot mark this declaration as unused because it cannot be removed from the class because it's inherited from the base class. And by default, the command at this point doesn't show such cases at all. But with, for example, this flag, non-used overridden, you can see if the declaration is not used in the base class and in all children, then the tool will show you that this declaration is not used within the whole hierarchy. So it's like an additional flag for that. And there are different flags. For example, you can change the output format for the commands, like change the whether they should show you like relative pass or absolute pass, etc. There are different flags that can help you adjust the behavior.
That's nice. How about maybe we go through the metrics? So I've seen on your website, like you have metrics such as number of parameters, which is an interesting one, right? This is something that usually comes when I was part of like some teams that we wanted to write some, guides and rules for our, code base. This is one of the things that usually come up, like how many parameters should be passed? Is it 2, 5, 10? And what does that metric means? And how can I define it? And how do you show me like there is a problem somewhere related to that?
Okay, I think the best way to use metrics is to calculate them in HTML report. And I'll actually use another project for that because the metrics there, I think, are configured and are already configured. So we'll try to do that. To show you metrics, I will use another project and I will use an HTML report, not the console. Before that, I've shown you the console output for unused code, and I will show you another type of report that we have as an HTML report for metrics. So I will go to my terminal and use calculate metrics. lib and reporter HTML, and I think I might need something else, but let's see. Yeah, I forgot the open flag looking for. So for example, we can now open the report in the browser and actually see. Unfortunately, it doesn't include the number of parameters that you asked, but it includes the cyclomatic complexity and maximum nesting level metric. So
can I define the metrics, or is it like default to the DCM?
What do you mean you can?
So how do you recognize it? Like let's say you said that, metrics, number of parameters, and can I also define a new metric, or is it like always you need to define it, or we just configure it?
Yeah, metrics are included into the tool. You can configure them in the same like analysis options file. I'll show you here, but we'll go back and see, for example, number of parameters. I think, for example, like that. And actually, metrics are, of course, it's a YAML map. So that's how you define the configuration for metrics. Yeah, and I think DCM has right now 18 metrics, entity-defined metrics, and that's how you can set them for your project. And then when you call the calculate metrics command, it will use these numbers as a like threshold for whether you violate or not. Yeah, and that's how the report looks like. You can, for example, sort the files. If I sort by cyclomatic complexity, and I will just go, for example, for this class called, for this widget called, or I think it's set of widgets. Okay, and then you'll see the violations. For example, this line says that you have like no violations for both, like cyclomatic complexity, just 1 here, and it's below the configure. I think for this project it's 20, something like that. And then when we scroll down, we'll see, for example, we should see one yellow, kinda, and it says that the cyclomatic complexity for this method, the build method, is 15, which is close to, or it's 10 maybe for this project. I actually don't remember. So it's right now it says that the metric is 5. Yeah, it has 4 types of severity. It's either below or near or high or very high. And now, since we see high, it means that it's violated. So it's more than we want.
What is this metric, by the way, you're talking about? Maybe some people don't know about cyclomatic, right?
Yeah, cyclomatic complexity. Yeah, cyclomatic complexity means that the number of independent paths through your code. For example, and it can actually be reduced. The definition can be actually reduced, and many tools use that definition instead. That each time your code splits, for example, you have an if statement, the metric is increased. For example, if you have an if statement, it means you have 2 separate paths that your code your flow can go, and it increases the cyclomatic complexity. And same applies, for example, for nullish operators or like conditions or and, etc. So they all split the code into different like.
So let's take this build method right now as an example here. So when it says 15, that means actually the definition of the function now has so many complex paths, like many ifs, many routes to go, right?
Additions, yes.
And like operators. Okay, that now makes sense. This is actually very useful, to be honest. So it just helps to like avoid having a very long or maybe complex function and break it down to a smaller one.
Yes, and what I think most important, and how I at least approach metrics, is metrics are like a high-level overview. Not necessarily need them all the time, but you can from time to time open your project and just see all the complex places that needs attention. Because I think that looking into something like that all the time is just take your time, but it might not be necessary. But doing that from time to time can help you find places like this one. And that's really important to address. Because usually, again, I think this is relatively big method, and given the number is 15, it's probably, let's just go like, here is the first if, and it has like or and not equal now.
I immediately can see this is actually a very complex method. Because like reading that is also not really straightforward. It just takes time to realize what's going on right now. I guess that makes sense. So this is actually very interesting. Do you have any other example or feature that you would like to demonstrate it right now and show us with DCM?
Yes, let's go with another report type. I think we can go back to the console. And now I will show you the analyze widgets report. It's similar to metrics, but it's widget centered. And I also show you the similarity feature as well. So that's how we create a report like that. Yeah, this time I'm also using the open flag just to open that when it's generated. So this report shows you the list of widgets that you have in your project, both public and private. I use the lib folder, right? And all the widgets inside lib are included here. And for example, and you see the widget type, for example, whether the widget is stateless, stateful. I think we also have render objects, inherited widgets, etc. And then you see some metrics that are, I think right now of metrics for this report is included into the report, but you can change the threshold as I showed before in the analysis options. So, for example, and I'll go back to the quality score a little bit later. And it shows the number of similar widgets. So how many widgets have similar subtrees as the widget.
Interesting. This is very interesting.
I will show you in details. So here's how it looks. I'm not gonna lie. I copied the user experience of Dart.doc intentionally to give people, because you see it's the same colors, same sidebar. Yeah. It kind of looks the same. That was intentionally to help people to put people in the known experience. They kind of understand how it works just looking at it, because they have the same experience with Dart.doc, for example. And that was the intention, I guess. And here is the help button widget that was in the table before. And so you can also open the widget in VS Code right from the report. I don't know actually whether it will open another. Let's try. No, it will open the same. And yes, so now we have this help button. You can just deep dive into the widget from the report without any destruction, let's say that. And that's the quality score. Quality score is basically takes number of metrics for your widget, for your different methods, and kind of creates it's not an average because different metrics can contribute differently to the whole score, but it tries to look into widgets how many fields it has, how many methods, what's the complexity of those methods, different metrics, and then how many widgets this widget uses, actually, unique widgets. Because again, usually when you have 40, 50 widgets inside, it's usually very complex. You usually try to have a feasible number of widgets inside. And you also can configure those numbers in the metrics configuration. It's all getting picked up from your configuration. And you can also jump into each method and look into it if you want to. And here we see that almost everything is good. And here is a Halstead volume, source lines of code, and maintainability index those are close, I think, and this is above you can also see the metrics configuration here. Yeah, the complexity was 10 actually, yeah. Okay. And now the next section of this report shows you the used widgets. So some of the widgets are from Flutter, right? You can also open the VS Code. You can open the GitHub of this widget. You can open the Flutter docs. Let's try that. Yeah, now we are in the align class, basically, and we can just go look into the documentation of this widget that we use if we want, and you see the colors, the paddings kind of the same, as I mentioned. And then you also see, I think this report doesn't include local widgets, but we will go into another report and I will show you the local widgets. And it also shows you the widgets that use this widget, and here's 0. I'll go to another report and show that as well. And now let's go to the similarity thing. So it says that 49% of this widget tree matches 49% of the macOS button widget tree, macOS back button. And it highlights you the widgets that it considers similar. And here is the build tree, the widget tree of this another widget, macOS back button. You can see a mouse region, gesture detector, semantics, constraint box, fade transition, right? And then if we look into the source of this widget, we will see the same thing. Mouse region, gesture detector, constraint semantics, constraint box, fade transition. So it says that 5 widgets in the widget tree match. That's the similarity report. And you can refactor or keep it as is based on your intentions, decisions. And the number can vary. The number can vary, be 68, 14, etc. And now let me show you the local widgets and the used by, for example. I think we can buy something else. No. Also no. But it shows the inherited widgets. Let's just go. For example, now you see the local widget. You can also go to its report and open it. And you can see that it's local. It's highlighted that you can go through it, and it doesn't have the GitHub and Flutter docs, of course. And now you see also that there are 4 other widgets that use this macOS overlay filter. And if you go to, for example, pull down menu, you'll see that it uses the overlay filter, right? It's overlay filter. Yeah. overlay filter, and if you go to the source, let me just try to overlay filter, and here it is. So it says that it uses this widget. It's was another widget. Here it is. So it says that it uses the macOS overlay filter. So here is the overview. The idea behind this report is to show you the widgets and to show the quality, how they used, what other widgets use them, similarity, etc.
Great. That's great. So this was great. I mean, the last part of this conversation and demonstration of this metric actually caught my eye. Like, I have said nothing. I was just looking at the reports and just quickly take a look at the tables and the numbers. And I was just quickly thinking like, oh, this is actually great. Like, we have a big team and always looking at these, by eye, or cutting some issues like in the PRs or, things like that. It's pretty actually difficult, right? Whereas we can maybe now set up GitHub Action or something, whatever CI you use, and then grab some of these numbers. I bet you export them as JSON or something as well. So it's kind of useful. Yes. And then export it and then try to look at some numbers and say, yeah, you see, you actually defined a new widget that no widget is using, though please go ahead and remove it because it's useless if you define it that no one is using, or something like that. I'm just hypothetically saying some rules. But this is fantastic. This is great. I guess you now need to tell us, so Dmitry, if someone wants to go ahead and start using Dart code metrics, so the open source package is discontinued and there's no way, people can use it, but I don't think they get this feature at all. So I used to use it, and it's definitely not there. So it's going to be worth paying for, or for teams especially, paying for this service and get it. Like, what's the next step? Like, if I'm convinced, I'm just going to go and buy. Well, what should I do?
I actually wanted to show you more features if you want.
I think we keep some of the secrets at least for for other shows.
Let's give a little spoiler on what commands you can actually use. I will just give you an overview again. So just a little bit so people can see. Yeah. So again, the commands that I've shown you before, they are just use the calculate metrics to show metrics reports. We used the check unused code to show unused code report in the CLI, in the console of VS Code, and then we used the analyze widgets to build the list of widgets, their metrics, usages, etc. And DCM comes with a handful of another commands that you can use, as we described before, like fixes, and use dependencies in your pub. For example, if you have a package that you don't use, but it's listed in your dependencies, DCM will show you that. Or if you have a package that is in dev dependencies or in regular dependencies, but it needs to be in another section, DCM will also show you that. So here is the list, and all these commands can be used separately. For example, for like analysis, duplications, unused code, etc. They can be called separately, but you can also run all of them and via DCM run they will produce you aggregated report from all the commands. It doesn't support the HTML version, but you can see the JSON or like the console output for all the commands you choose. And this command is actually built for CI/CD, so you can run all DCM commands via one command, and it will both speed up the CI/CD in general because calling each command is longer, and give you like a summary that you can just go through and see that everything is like either passing the checks or you have some issues. For example,
you showed me this command, and now you need to answer a question. One of these actually command right now caught my eye, and you need to tell me like what it does. Analyze a structure, and it says analyze Dart project structure. What does it do?
Let me show you the output of the command, how it's shown in the docs, because I don't have an example right now that won't show you because if you use any project, you can probably get to a very complicated structure that will be really hard to discuss. Yeah. So I'm going to the DCM documentation and opening the analyze structure, and I will also increase the zoom. So that's the description of the command, and it basically shows you how files depend on each other, imports, exports, parts, and so on. And here is the output of this command. It shows you, for example, cycles in your imports. It colors different files. These, like, for example, if it's an entry point file, it's colored differently, so you can see the entry points. The entry points are the files that have only exports in them, and so on. It shows you part files. They have a double-sided arrow. It shows you conditional files. It has a dashed arrow, and so on. It helps you like understand how parts of your code, like basically, if you have modules, for example, you can see how modules interact with each other. Which one depends on other modules, and you can see dependencies between them that you want to probably avoid, or like that are wrong and should be removed, for example. And here is the example how it works with. You can also, for example, pass a regular expression to the command, and it will highlight some nodes that match your regular expression, so you can like easily find them in the result. And and the command also supports aggregation. For example, that's the modules example for DCM projects itself, and each of these entries is a folder with many files, but the command, based on the regular expression, the command aggregates all of these folders into modules and shows imports and exports between those modules as if there is only one connection, let's say. And it helps you see how your modules, like folders with a lot of files, connect. Here we can see that widgets, for example, widgets analysis uses metrics analysis, and we can see this one line that actually shows that. Yeah, that's how the command works and what it shows. It uses the custom, it's not producing you the screenshots, it uses the custom format like tool and format code grab this, and that uses dot format, but you can either pass the output of DCM into the like CLI tool or open an online editor and just paste the DCM output there, and you'll see the like basically this. I think that is from the online editor. I just screenshot it.
I see. Like an interactive diagram.
Yeah, and you can just select nodes and see.
Yeah, I guess for bigger project, that's going to be very helpful, like to take a look. Okay, that's very interesting. Let's go back to another question or last question. Like, I'm convinced I'm just going to go ahead buy this project, or not this project, this product. What should I do next? What's the plan?
I think it depends on whether you are an individual or a team. I will start with the teams because it's a little bit more complicated flow than for individuals. So if you're a team and, for example, depending on the number of developers you have, if, for example, if you have a whole department that works on Flutter, integrating the tool like that can be a little bit complicated for you, both in like discussing the budget and integrating the tool, getting everyone on board, etc. So, for example, you might want to start with a smaller number of seats. For example, you have like, I don't know, 30, 40 developers or 20 developers. You can just start with, for example, 5. Actually, I think I skipped the part, very important part. And very important part would be that, I think I mentioned it before, but that we have, for teams, we have 14 days free trial that you get full featured tool with all the capabilities it has. That is like intentionally, there is no limitations on the full tools features, because idea behind it is that you can really assess and evaluate the tool to its full potential and then make the weighted decision whether you actually see the value in the tool or not. So the trial that we provide is full featured. And then after, for example, the trial period, you can either buy the tool for your whole team if you want, or if you still need more time, because we had actually some teams that 14 days is not enough for them, and they started like with, again, one smaller team in their department, 5 people. They integrated the tool, they used it for 6 months, and then they made a decision that, okay, we see the value, we see the difference between people who are using the tool and who are not using the tool, and we see the value, and then we buy the tool. Then they decided to buy the tool for the whole department. That can be one flow, depending on the size of your team. Of course, the flow can differ, but most of the time, the trial is enough to at least understand like the core principles behind the tool. The lints, the metrics, the reports, etc. That's for teams. For individuals, we don't have a trial period, and it's important to say that the individuals version has limited capabilities. I think the core feature of DCM is actually lint rules. It's not the things, because other things are things that you most of the time need from time to time. Of course, you can collect like metrics all the time, but you won't be looking into the metrics all the time. And lints are the core feature that helps you both find bugs, speed up code reviews, and you work on your code like day to day always, and lints are always there and they're always present. So the lints are the feature that is available in individuals package as well. And I think there are 3 commands: DCM analyze, DCM check unused. I mean, even aside, I think it's expert completeness, it's unused files, and something else, maybe unused of mistaken.
So if
So
people have questions regarding this, I guess, first of all, they can check the website, dcm.dev. I'm going to put the link in the description below. And then also they can connect with you either on Twitter, which I will show the Twitter here, as well as the description, show notes. And also you have a Discord server, I believe. So people then also start joining the Discord and maybe start asking you any question if they have. I've seen in the past, you mentioned about open source package license, something like that. I think that was a term. Tell me about that. Like, how do you recognize that? How can I, if I am an open source maintainer and I would love to have this package in my, repository or package that I'm developing. So what should I do? How should I contact you? Is it free, by the way, or not?
So you said so for open source packages, DCM comes, we have a special license, a free license that is granted for the package, for the GitHub mostly project, and for its forks. So you and your contributors can benefit from the tool, but there are two conditions. First one is that your project should be worked on. If you are requesting a license for a project that is like old and not maintained, that won't be approved. And the second condition is that it should be helpful to others. For example, if you're doing something for yourself, that is also most of the time won't be considered as because I think the core idea of this license is to give people who constantly work with other people on the open source a way to get access to all DCM features, like completely free. But the thing that they're working on is actually useful to others. That's like it's free of charge, fully featured, but it should be useful to others and worked on, something like that. And which I personally think is fair. I don't know how others might think of it, but I think it's a fair exchange. Let's say that.
I will leave this to those who are watching, or they want to come to you and say if it's fair or not, if they have other opinion and if they want you to change something here. So please tell Dmitry. So he's open to adjust the plan accordingly. So thank you very much for joining for this show. Just tell me again, we always have a closing word. I would love to hear what do you think about the future of the product, as well as your closing words. Stage is yours.
Sure. Before we get to that, I think you mentioned the ways to contact me, but there is also another one. You can just send an email describing your situation, like your team conditions, whether you think whether you're unsure. If you're unsure that DCM can actually help you, I'm also happy to help. And my goal is mostly to give you more the info to make the decision. And if you see that the tool actually can help you after the trial or after our conversation, only then you move forward and you will get the tool and etc. So only if you see the value. Another thing, I'm ready to help you get the best understanding of the tool. You don't need to pay anything for that. It's like this process starts before you have trial, before you buy the tool. Just come ask questions. I'm again happy to answer any of that. Okay, now moving to the closing word and the future for the product. I think the core goal is to just make DCM better. I think there are still a lot of areas and commands and lint rules that can be added, more different external packages support, more commands, more analytics for people to analyze their code better. So I guess the core goal for the product long term is to just make it better for the people who use it, who find it useful, add new features to get other people on board and so on. But the core will be around the static analysis, finding bugs, issues, and giving you overview of your code base in a different ways. I also think that one feature I'm personally looking forward to is I hope it's maybe this year even, there will be, at least there is an idea for that, to build a cloud version to help you upload your reports to like some SaaS-like service, integrate into DCM, of course, SaaS part of DCM, let's say that, where you will be able to see the history of how some branches change your overall code quality state, how branches add or reduce the number of issues, metrics on all branches, etc. So you'll be able to see how the project evolves in terms of number of issues, number of code quality, like metrics, etc. So that's also one of the features I'm looking forward to. It's not available yet. It's not even been like worked on actively, but I hope that's also something that, and again, it won't change the DCM analyzes the code locally, but it will probably upload some summary of a report to the server to then present to you in a better way. Yeah. So that's about the future. Of course, the goal would be to have more users to give them the best experience. So that's out of the question. And the closing word, I think it will correlate to what we discussed in another video about building the thing. But this time, I think it will be more about building the thing, not taking action, but building the thing for like building DCM taught me a lot as a developer. And it's my first open source package. And then it's my first paid product. I'm still learning a lot along the way, like on the way, whether it was open source, and I learned like the downsides and upsides of open source, like in general, and how to work with the community, how to manage tickets, feature requests, how to publish versions, etc. It taught me a lot process-wise and coding-wise, because before Dark Code Metrics as a package, I didn't know much about the static code analysis, and that was the thing that actually gives me a lot of joy working on. So I think that's important, I would even say, to work on something that gives you joy in general. So for those who have like their own ideas for their own packages, try it. I think that's something that I find important, and try it. But remember, for those who doing it as open source, that open source is the place where you put a lot of effort into things, and other people might not always recognize this effort and treat you well. So just remember that it also has downsides. Not making projects open source has downsides, and please be aware of that before starting, because then it will be harder. You'll be thinking, I put so much effort and now I don't feel like people who come to my project actually kind of appreciate that effort, and they always demand something from me, etc. So if you're not prepared, that moment will come sooner than later. But just remember that on the other hand, it's also an unpaid work, and you don't owe anyone anything. And you can just use that as an opportunity to work on something you like, despite others' opinion. So yeah, try things, build things. Maybe some of your things will then evolve into products, and I will be happy to support your journey.
Dmitry, thank you very much for coming and talking about your product, your package. I already recorded another session and published another video of how to become an entrepreneur if you are a developer. So the history behind Dart Code Metrics as a product from an open source package, which I discussed or had a very nice and pleasant conversation with Dmitry. Please go ahead and watch that too. That's going to give you a lot of insights. I believe you're going to enjoy too. Thank you very much, Dmitry, for today. And thank you for watching. See you next time.
Thank you for having me, and happy to share, happy to talk about DCM all the time. Thank you.